No, let's just talk.
Nope. The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good, where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And your host is not here, Robert Winfrey. Yay! However, I'm here, and I'm your mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, we are reviewing Creed 3. The sequel to Creed 2. And joining me tonight is my brother from another mother, a man who was ready, willing, and able to do shirtless podcasting until I reminded him that YouTube has standards. Ladies and gentlemen, Mosaic Media's own protocol son, the great white hype, Jason Teasley. How do you do, sir?
I'm doing good, even though you made me put a shirt on, and I was ready, willing, and able to do this podcast topless, and I used all my Crisco in the cabinet up. I was lathered down and ready to go, but unfortunately, we must deprive the viewers and save their retinas for that another day.
You know, I don't care about people's retinas as such. What I do care is about getting a community violation on YouTube for mild nudity.
Well, I'm just going to say this. Well, is it mild nudity? I mean, guys could be topless.
No, but it's still nudity.
It's not nudity.
If you're not wearing a shirt, not fully nude, it's mild nudity. Dude, are we really going to now debate
it is not
word nude?
It is not nude.
I have so many other questions that have nothing to do with us being naked. Can we please move this on?
Okay. But we will revisit this at some point.
Unfortunately, I know that's true. So you insisted. Robert took the night off because he doesn't like these movies at all. And I want to say I've done at least one of these before. I can't remember if it was the first Creed or the second Creed.
We've done all three of these, Mark. You. Yes.
No. I don't believe you.
Yes.
Hang on. I don't believe that that's true.
We
did at least one of them.
We did Creed. I know we did Creed 2 because Robert was on with us. And I know
we did at least one of these because I feel okay. I'm looking at the website now. We only did 2018, and so that was Creed 2. That was the one with Drago. It was Ronnie, Jason, Andrew, and me. So Robert wasn't on that one. It was me, you, Jason, and Andrew. I knew it.
Me, you, Jason, and Andrew. Jason, were you with us? He said he wasn't with us.
Okay, terrific. Anyway, Robert wasn't on that one. And I know specifically we didn't do the first Creed because I remember seeing it in the movies. And Robert and I talking about it, he was like, there's no fucking way. So I had not intended to initially review this because I know how you felt about it. But then you were like, I want to do this. And clearly you were on the last one. So really, let's start with the most obvious thing. Like, how big of a Rocky fan are you?
I mean, Rocky 4 is probably one of my top 5 movies.
Really? You know, that's the one I started Jonas on.
Yeah, I
Which is
mean
funny.
Rocky 4. That's because I started out with 2. I never
Mhm.
seen the funny story. I never watched the original Rocky until probably about 15 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, so I had never seen the original Rocky, and then I said it was on HBO or something one night, and I sat
Mhm.
down and watched it. And but yeah, my introduction, I seen 2, of course 3.
Mhm.
4 was the pinnacle, and then we
It really is.
downward
Really
spiral.
is the high water mark for Rocky movies.
Yeah. Um, 5 was utter the drizzling shits. Rocky Balboa wasn't horrible.
Rocky
Uh,
Balboa was a nice end to the series.
yeah, it wasn't horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it kind of was the best swan song for the series.
Yeah.
And then we dovetailed into Creed.
All right. So let me go back a second. The first Rocky movie I ever saw, I saw as a kid contemporaneously. It was Rocky 3. And because I remember like, oh my god, this is like the Avengers in it. Hulk Hogan, Mr. T, this is the best. And I remember loving Rocky 3 as a kid. I saw Rocky 4 when it came out. We did an on trial for it. Jesse and I talked about the soundtrack. When I was trying to get my son into boxing and I was trying to get him to appreciate the Rocky series, I started him with 4. He was really young at the time. He might have been like 4 or 5, and it was like the easiest for him to digest and understand, because the movie is like 90% fucking is what do you call it, scenes of him like working out or flashback other movies to
the workout montages.
montage. I don't think of the word montage. Yeah, it's like half the movie's montages. So he got it. So I was walking around. So I got a shirt for Christmas. It's Rocky and Drago face to face, and it says "If he dies, he dies," and which is also the name of a band, by the way. And I'm walking past it. I was out to lunch with one of my friends, and this guy goes like, "Hey, that's a great shirt." And I said to him, I was like, "Yeah, this is the one I started my son on." He was like, "Why didn't you start him on the first one?" And I'm like, "Because he's fucking 4. That's why." You know, I didn't watch the I didn't watch the first Rocky movie until I was much older. And it was because I watched 3, 4, went back to 1, like because I'd never seen it, and then it was years later after that I watched 2. 5 I saw in the movies, and I had the same reaction to it that everybody had. This doesn't feel like a Rocky movie. I've since come to appreciate it for what it was. It's just it's kind of my Last Jedi. In the sense that
don't start talking Star Wars. We'll get flamed in the.
It's my Last Jedi because everyone who hated the Last Jedi, their reaction to it is, "This isn't the Star Wars that I like. Give me the Star Wars I want," which is why everyone likes that garbage that was Rise of Skywalker. Rocky 5 kind of I had a similar reaction to it. This isn't the Rocky that I want, and now that it's years later, and I've gone back and I've revisited the movie and left out my expectations, just kind of appreciated it for what it was. It's definitely a touchstone of the boxing culture of the time. You had your Don King analog. You know, you had there's a good story there in a guy being brought up under Rocky, and you know what would be a continuing theme in the Rocky movies is somebody living in Rocky's shadow and not being able to get out from under it, which leads to the Rocky, I think it's 6, where he has the
Balboa.
That's how winning. Yeah, Rocky Balboa. That's how winning's done, which is like my favorite monologue of all time. It's like Paul Heyman the night before Survivor Series at the end of the invasion. That's how winning's done. The 2 best monologues in the history of American fiction.
Well, I mean, I don't know that one. The monologue. There's a really good monologue in 5 that he gives.
Mm-hmm.
That is highly underrated because it's in 5.
It's just mixed in with this really shit movie.
Yeah,
it's like,
but it's a good inspirational monologue. A sports monologue across anything is when he talks about it doesn't matter how hard you get hit, how many talk about how many times you get up and everything.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a really great heartfelt monologue, but like the movie 5 just kind of, it wasn't necessarily it wasn't the Rocky movie that I wanted.
Right.
It had a great concept, poor execution, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we're discussing some parts of Creed 3.
Okay. So just to kind of wrap up our discussion of Rocky leading into Creed, Rocky Balboa was a nice return to form. It was the Rise of Skywalker of the Rocky movies. It was the Rocky movie we wanted him to go out on. And I was done with this fucking series at the end of Rocky Balboa. We had done all we were going to do with this character. I did not need to see it again. I was happy with the way that it was. Which brings me to Creed, and I'll ask you first, to continue the Rocky series, but knowing that at this point Sylvester Stallone was approximately 106 years old. They needed to be like, well, what from the Rocky series can we mine to keep this going without having to remake the whole thing? It was kind of like a soft reboot of the whole series with the first Creed, where it focuses, for those that don't know, it focuses on the son, the illegitimate son of Apollo Creed, and and we follow his journey, and he goes to Rocky for training and all of that, and and it's very much kind of aping the original Rocky story of he gets the 1 in a million shot that was promised to somebody else, and he makes the most of it at the time. So my question to you, because I don't think I actually saw Creed in the theaters now that I'm thinking about it. I think I waited until it was like on PVOD at home or something because I didn't care. Like I think I actively thought the idea was stupid. And I was like, I don't, why are we doing this? Why can't we just leave the Rocky franchise alone? Leave the memories alone, hashtag. But I ended up watching it at home and I ended up really enjoying it for what it was. What about you? Did were you kind of like me, like, please don't touch my precious Rocky movies, you're just going to ruin it? Did you think this was dumb? Did you love the idea?
No, now, like, unlike you and Pat, the Rocky franchise is not like a sacred goat to me. It's something that I thoroughly enjoy.
No, Rocky is so precious to me. I love it. Don't leave it alone.
Yeah, I mean, it's a series that I've enjoyed. It's had its highs and lows, but it wasn't like I'm more.
I suddenly understand Chris Bailey's point about Star Wars. You're right. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, don't get Bailey started.
Yeah,
he might be listening. His ears perked up.
It's like I feel a disturbance in the Force.
So enough with the Star Wars reference, or we will summon him. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't like the sacred goat that I wasn't opposed to revisiting. I thought it was a kind of a weird concept when it first came out. Like, this is like Apollo's son that magically appears and
that crossed the multiverse.
Yeah, like
he's got like the subtle knife from his Dark Materials. He's like, zip, I'm going into this universe now.
Yeah, like I didn't know that he was pulled over into the Rocky verse. But yeah, it was weird because if they would have had like some weird woven thing in that they called back to kind of justify Creed being who he is, Adonis being who he is, I would have understood it a little bit more, but it was kind of like a forced thing, and I felt like it was kind of a cash grab.
Yeah,
they was wanting to really do a cash grab, so they tried to do this forced, interwoven, illegitimate son.
Yeah,
that nobody had heard of, before his death.
Right.
That, like, a famous boxer gets a girl pregnant, but she doesn't pursue him for child support. This isn't the America I grew up in.
Yeah, I was gonna say there was nothing more fictional in this entire series than that.
Yeah, that not wanting to claim your son as the son of the heavyweight champion of the world at the time.
Yeah,
is kind of especially when he's on the beach doing montage workouts with a buff Italian in short shorts.
Hang on, gayer 80s workout scene: volleyball in Top Gun or running on the beach in Rocky 3?
That's close. That's almost as gay as Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Ooh, I don't remember that one.
Oh, you don't? Oh, it is so bad. It's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the boy that there's so many like homosexual overtones.
Okay.
Definitely look it up.
I mean,
when
I've
you get a
seen it. I
chance
just
when
don't
you're
remember.
bored.
I don't remember the movie. Anyway, moving on.
It's very bad. But yeah, it's kind of shoehorned in, but the premise is solid. You know, you got this.
It's definitely a better
boxer
movie
that's-
than it had any right to be. Like,
Oh
Creed
yeah,
Creed
it
is
surpassed.
weirdly
It surpassed
good.
Yeah, it surpassed its expectations by a long shot.
So Creed 2, Creed 2 is like my favorite of the series so far. Because for the same reason Rocky 4 is my favorite of the Rocky movies, because it's
Drago.
so like beyond dumb. I love it. So for those that don't know, Creed 2 really plays on how Apollo died in Rocky 4. At the end of Rocky 4, Rocky is able to overcome his greatest obstacle yet in, the big giant Ivan Drago from Russia.
No, he overcame communism.
Yes, and no, he did both. He overcame his greatest obstacle, the steroided up monster from Russia, and in doing so ended the Cold War, as we all know. Rocky saved America. We all know this. It's in the history books. So anyway,
that would be something really interesting to see in your history book.
I think might as well be teaching it. Anyway,
I might teach that to my daughter.
There you go. So Drago earlier in the movie, and what sets up the second and third act of Rocky 4 is in an exhibition, Drago goes ham on Apollo and kills him in the ring. And so then Rocky beats Drago, and we never know what happened to Drago after that. We went back to Russia, and we find out that he was shamed, essentially.
Shunned,
he was an outcast. Yeah, shunned. He ends up having a son. He trains that son to be a boxer, and now that Adonis Creed has made a name for himself, and I believe, at the end of, I think, Creed 1, he loses by like split decision against Conlon.
Yeah.
And Rocky 2, he's not Andre Ward's in the beginning of the movie, and he beats him, and he's Andre Ward, by the way, I think is like a welterweight or some shit. And it's like these are the shortest heavyweights I've ever seen.
Well, this is like old school UFC weight classes because some of these weight classes are a bit off.
Yeah. So anyway, so he beats Andre Ward at the beginning of the movie and he becomes the heavyweight champion. Kind of like Rocky 3, we sort of see like a montage of how successful he is and whatever else. Now he's at the top of his game. He cannot be beat. So Creed 2 is like a mashup of Rocky 3 and Rocky 4. So he's at the top of his game. He can't be beat. He won't be beat. And in comes Drago, who nearly beats him to death. And then after he convalesces for a while, Rocky comes back to him and says, okay, we're going to go into the desert and we're going to just give you so much muscle mass that when you hit him, you break bone. That's it. He was like, we're going to create some hurt bombs. Great strategy. This guy beat the shit out of him in the first fight. So it was like, we'll just make you hit him harder. It'll be fine. Anyways, he ends up beating Drago and there's respect. And that brings us to Creed 3. So the plot goes as follows. I'm not going to read this word for word. But at this point, Adonis has transitioned. He's retired from being heavyweight champion. He's transitioned into promoting. He's promoting a fight between Drago and whoever the current heavyweight champion is. At the same time, his buddy, Jonathan Majors, who plays the character Diamond Dame Anderson. We'll call him Dame for the rest of the show.
Dame is Dame for you.
Dame is his childhood friend. They were both ne'er-do-wells, both got into trouble, both in group homes. And what we find out through the course of the movie is that they got abused, and they happen to cross paths with their abusers, and Adonis nearly beats him to death. The cops show up, Adonis runs, Jonathan Majors is caught, and Jonathan Majors ends up getting with a gun and ends up doing 10 years, I think, in prison.
18.
I was 18. Okay. So, in the interim, Adonis went to go live with Phylicia Rashad. He had the life of Riley. He becomes heavyweight champion. And needless to say, while in prison, Jonathan Majors is pissed. So he gets out. he comes to find Adonis. He warms up to him, cozies up to him. They're buddies again. At a party, some attendant of the party hits Drago and forces him out of the fight. And we get like a replay of the 1 in a million shot. And, Jonathan Majors really plays on Michael B. Jordan's, guilt. Over what all happened. So he ends up giving a guy, and this is the most unbelievable thing about this movie. When Rocky got the shot, he had been a professional. When Rocky gets the 1 in a million shot, he's on the tail end of his career. Okay?
Yeah.
It's really important to note this, because this is one of the things that bugged me about this movie. There's like suspension of disbelief, and then there's creating a situation that is so wholly fictional it takes you out of the movie. That's really problem one with this. I don't want to get off on a tangent, and while we're in the middle of the plot synopsis, but this is a big deal.
Yeah, this is one of the. I'm going to go into this because this is something that I would have changed completely about the movie. This is one of my biggest gripes about the movie. So we're going to discuss this.
Friend
later.
of yours? Because that was your gimmick.
Yeah, that's my gimmick. Why somebody's stealing my gimmick? I don't know why somebody's stealing my gimmick.
We have a friend on Twitch who says Creed 3 versus is Killmonger versus Kang. Yes, Jonathan Majors is a very good actor, taking a lot of great parts these days. Anyway, so back to the plot synopsis. So essentially, when Jonathan Majors gets this 1 in a million shot, the shot that's supposed to ape what happened with Rocky, he's an unranked fighter with no record.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen.
It's plucked out of obscurity on the highest level.
Yeah, it is utterly ridiculous. Like I said, Rocky had a record and had been a professional for years. He just wasn't good. I
mean, the premise behind this is it's getting a fight. It's a thrown together fight. They're within a week of it.
They're trying to create. It's essentially, this was like when Dan Henderson, I think, injured himself before a fight with, I want to say it was John Jones, and it was like a week before the fight, and they were like scrambling to create a fight, and they offered to like Chael Sonnen or somebody, and they were, and John Jones then wouldn't take the fight, and they had to it was the first event the UFC ever canceled, and Dana White was like fucking beside himself. Sometimes you kind of create a fight out of hay, and the fight itself is not good, but it looks good on a poster. There's interest. It's kind of like a Jake Paul kind of a thing. No one expected Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury to be good, but people who are not boxing fans who just wanted to hear a movie review, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Just look it up. But Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury, no one expected it to be good. But Jake Paul's a YouTuber. Jake Paul's famous. People want to see if a real boxer's going to kick his ass. Same thing here. They lose Drago. They're trying to save this fight for the heavyweight championship. Jonathan Majors' character, they think, for whatever the reasons were, and I don't remember why they thought this was a good idea, but they were like, "Oh well, this will save it." There's interest here. I remember what it is. It's they play on it's the 1 in a million shot. So he's a
former Golden Gloves champ.
Yeah, that's like the one thing they were hinging this on. So anyway, Jonathan Majors ends up getting the fight, and he wins the championship. Adonis finds out after the fact from Phylicia Rashad's character, who's his foster mother or his adoptive mother, that this has been a plot from prison all along. That the guy who hit Drago was his prison buddy.
Yeah, and this is the most blinking you miss at most ridiculous thing, because if you wasn't paying attention in the party scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see the picture, you could connect those dots.
Right.
You have no idea who this guy.
Yeah. If you missed who the guy hitting Drago was, when you see the picture, you're like, I don't understand the relevance of this.
Yeah.
All right. So now Adonis knows he's been had. This has been a plot from the start. He goes to confront Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors punks him, and there's some discussion or such with Tessa Thompson, his wife. And he decides he's going to challenge Jonathan. Adonis goes on TV. Jonathan Majors starts giving him shit. They decide they're going to have a fight. And he ends up training for what was the different? I don't remember.
He wasn't in the desert this time. He was in an airplane.
I can't remember I can't remember like what all made this training session different from anything else, but
Well, he was in an airplane hangar, and instead of pulling a car, he pulled a plane this time. He didn't pull a truck; he pulled a plane this time. And then he didn't box in the tire. He got a hold of Drago, and they sparred. Instead of him sparring some illegal Mexicans in the desert, he actually got a boxer that he knew that was on his level. That's pretty much.
And he trains with Drago. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Drago comes and like spars with him and shit. Yeah. All right, so they have their fight, and in the end, Donnie ends up beating him and regaining the world championship. But they found mutual respect for each other. There's a scene at the end where they kind of make amends somewhat in the locker room, and then that's the end of the movie. So I'll go to you first, Jason. What did you think? Before I do, friend of the show, Pat Mullen, who wanted to be here with us tonight, who probably could have done a better recitation of the plot than I did. He gave some notes. And for those that don't know, my buddy Pat was an amateur boxer. He's the one that I do the History of Boxing show with. Really, really good guy, very knowledgeable. And he had thoughts. And he wanted to be here, but he couldn't because of the timing. So here's what he said. He said, the movie has an identity crisis trying to be angels with dirty faces, Rocky 3, and to an extent, Warrior, the daughter princess tea party scene, the brother relationship being mended. From a cinematic standpoint, it's really visually well done throughout. The final fight was not good. Both of the previous fights in the film were better shot and executed, but that's what happens when you have professionals and actors playing fighters. There were too much extra emotional baggage that was rushed and forfeited. The emotional impact that spending time on just one of these subplots could have had. Rocky was sorely missed as a sounding board and refuge for Adonis. Real quick, just before we get into anything else, this was the first one that wasn't directed by Ryan Coogler. He did the story for it. He has a story credit. Yeah. But this was directed by Michael B. Jordan. For those that don't know, Ryan Coogler is the one that did the Black Panther movies. All right. Go ahead, Jason. Your thoughts.
All right. Now, we're going to start bad. I think
on this show, the devil, you say.
The biggest issue I had with this is pacing. I thought this was at a breakneck speed. This should have been two movies. This should have been the first part of this movie should have been, Jonathan Majors coming out, seeking out, starts training under Adonis in the gym, befriending him. Adonis feels bad. You have the fight. You get Drago taken out, and you don't reveal that just yet. You start, and Adonis starts promoting Jonathan Majors to get him some fights under his belt to get recognition. And, and just like you start seeing him come up the ranks. And then, the fight gets called off.
I want to interject something here. Without doing the Son of Mr. T, since they've already done the Son of Drago, this was kind of like you can see in the writers' room. They were like, when we're doing Creed 3, what do we want to do here? We kind of want to do Rocky 3. We want to do Mr. T. You want to know what the difference between Rocky 3 and Creed 3 is? Mr. T, you saw actually gaining a record when he punked Rocky publicly at the retirement press conference. Yeah, he's already been on a tear. He's been knocking bitches. Like, there's a whole montage of Rocky fucking off and like doing promotional appearances, kissing babies and and whatnot, and that's interspersed with Mr. T either knocking guys out or running. Yeah. So by the time, when he goes up and tells Adrian, "You want to get with a real man," it's so good. Yeah. He's already got a record. Like there's an argument to be made that he should be vying for the title.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They should have had the Drago fight. They should have had that fight.
Right.
Let Rocky's boy come out on top, stay the champion. But you have Jonathan Majors coming up, and then you have that conflict of should he get a shot? And you got his guilt playing against his protege, his golden child, versus he feels guilty. And about the halfway point, have that fight happen.
Mhm.
Have like, do the montage of Jonathan Majors coming up, and have him like, playing on it,
Right.
when I'm, I've developed a reputation. When am I going to get a shot? When am I going to start getting looked at? You know, get a. He said, I'm ready for a high profile.
I think another element of it, because you see it in the one fight that he kind of fights dirty. Like,
yeah,
there
that's
needed to be a lot more of that. Like he's winning fights, but he's with every fight, more and more people start to hate him because he's such an awful human being.
He becomes the ultimate heel. He becomes this
exactly.
like Mike Tyson was when he was just running through people before he hit that turning point. A lot of people didn't like Tyson early in his career.
I was going to say he needed to be, I'm going to eat your children, Mike Tyson.
Yeah. And then once he became champion, the crowd turned and started cheering him. And that's what you needed to do with Majors. You need to make Majors that young Mike Tyson that was just ruthless coming up, and then play on it and you have that fight for the championship in the middle. Because, and we'll go back to this, I'll touch back on this, and then have him win the title, and then have them setting up a rematch, and the protege gets taken instead of having Drago gets taken out. The protege gets taken out, and and have Majors just planting the seeds, goading him, and just have that the second half of the movie, like have him keep winning and just calling, and then there's some kind of rift. You see that you could do the same plot as the guy took out the protege, and that's why there couldn't be a rematch. And then Adonis finds out, and then Jonathan Majors spends the rest of the movie just fucking tearing through people and goading Creed, and just have it end when have something end with him actually putting him in a no-win situation where he has to fight. There's no choice but to fight.
Yeah.
Then you go on to the next movie. You start the build of them fighting. Him keep calling him out. Him just, calling him a paper champion, that he never really beat nobody, and everything, that he went through people that wasn't really on his level. And then have the fight happen. Just spin that whole build, and have the fight happen, and have it legitimately look like Creed's going to lose. And because he's the quote unquote self-doubt, he's carrying all this emotional baggage, and make it more heartfelt where he overcomes it.
Because here's my criticism of this movie. I tend to agree with what Pat said. The fight choreography, at least for the first two movies, with the slowing of the camera, and I want to credit to Michael B. Jordan for his physical acting. His ability to look like a boxer, but also the way that it was shot. This movie looks better than it is. That's almost the most winningest thing about this movie, is that when you get to the
last fight,
until the last fight, it looks awesome. They really made the cinematography in the fight scenes is pretty spectacular. But this is I saw this with my son, and of course he was always asking me, like, what are you going to say on Damn You Hollywood about this? We have a routine now. And I'm like, Jonas, it's a slight movie. And he was like, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, the emotion in this movie is, it kind of feels like that American Dad episode where they were aping James Bond, and Roger, who is like the Goldfinger villain in this, is like, I think he's like Crybaby or something like that. And and he makes this like overly maudlin movie, that is just meant to make you like go to pieces and whatnot, and like that's his whole evil plot. It kind of feels like that. Like it feels shallow, and a lot of the emotional beats, when you're not thinking about it, or you're just passively watching the movie, kind of tug at the heartstrings, but just enough that just enough that you feel something, but you're not uncomfortable. This isn't an unenjoyable experience, and that kind of bugged me, because the one thing about the Rocky movies, especially the first two, is that they are laden with real emotional, resonant moments. That's what makes Rocky Rocky. You know, a lot of people who like, you know, my wife is not the world's biggest Rocky fan. She doesn't get it. She doesn't get why Rocky resonates, especially with men, with so many people. Because Rocky's not just about a boxer. It's not about boxing. It is about fighting through adversity. You know, it is about believing in yourself when the world has told you you're nothing, and you overcome. You know, and you live the impossible dream. That's the Rocky story. And I feel like the first Creed movie with Rocky there, another thing that Pat said, you know, with Rocky provides that emotional base. Because I don't think Michael Jordan pulls it off very well. Like, I don't think he's a bad actor. I mean, come on, he's Wallace from The Wire. But I've often said of modern film, when they remake it from the classics, that the people making them don't. I said this about Looney Tunes specifically. I remember this conversation very specifically with Alexis and I, where we were talking about the new Looney Tunes cartoons on HBO Max, and we were like, this was clearly made by people who watched Looney Tunes but didn't know why they were funny. And so they're just kind of doing what they've seen previously without knowing why that stuff works. Same thing here with the Creed movies, especially this one being the worst offender, is this was clearly made by people who have a love and affection for the Rocky series, but are not, that don't really understand why Rocky works. So they're doing what they think they're giving what people want. And when we get into the Rotten Tomatoes stuff and, you know, the critical review, they fucking hit it dead on. Don't get me wrong. Like, I understand my point is going to be in the minority, because I'm saying this movie lacks real emotional heft and depth. However, I'm not entirely sure the audience this was intended for gives a shit.
Well, and another thing that I think that this movie had that it definitely didn't need was the subplot of his daughter wanting to fight. I think. Well, no, I'm saying that I'm thinking that they could have done that differently. Like, you know, as Majors is goading him, her questioning, well, you know, this is because that's what she knows of her dad. She knows her dad is a fighter, that he's a stand-up fighter. And it's kind of her like wondering why, you know, this guy's have her getting bullied, and then, you know, have her basically mirroring the fact that Adonis is being bullied too, basically being bullied by Majors, and have her just accepting the bully in him, and just have that realization, like, you know, she needs to stand up for herself.
I'll tell you. Okay,
she looks to me for that guidance.
So another parallel from the actual Rocky, actually a parallel from the first Creed movie, as a matter of fact. So Rocky gets cancer in the first one, and he won't do so Rocky, since Rocky Balboa, has been a widower. Adrian died between Rocky 5 and Rocky 6, and he spent a lot of Rocky 6 kind of moping about Adrian.
Yeah.
And then in the Creed movie, you know, he's still like, he's living his life, but he's still kind of moping about her. And he is at a point, and this is one thing about the way they've written Rocky that I've never really enjoyed. I've never really liked. I don't feel like that's his real character. I think it's an invention for the sake of plot. But like, yes, Adrian is his true love. I don't know why. I've watched all of these movies. I don't understand, but I'm not. I cannot take away somebody else's feeling. So that is the way they wrote him. Adrian is one true love. He lives for her. He would do anything for her. And when she's gone, he feels like a part of him is gone too. And he spends a fair amount of Creed pining to be with her again in heaven. So when he gets lymphoma, and they're like, we can cure. Boy, did this resonate with me. And like, this is easily curable. You'll be fine. You're he's like, I don't need the chemo. No. Because he wants to die. He wants to die and be with Adrian. Fine. I don't agree with it, but that's the way they wrote it. It is what it is. And then Creed's like, well, fuck it. You know, it was the same thing in Rocky 2. Where
I was going to say
it's like, wait, now that I'm trying to remember, like, I remember hearing this once before. Rocky 2 is the same thing. It's like Adrian ends up in the hospital giving birth to Rocky Jr., and Rocky just stops training, and he's just staying with her, and he's reading to her and all of this stuff. And Mickey finally comes to see him, and he was like, if you're going to stay in here and be by her side, then I'm going to stay here with you. I'm done pushing you. And then she comes out of the coma, and she's like, win, Rocky, win. And suddenly he's like born again, like when the world was new. Yeah, exactly. Same thing with Creed. Adonis is like, I'm not training for this fight if you're not going to train me. If you're just going to give up and die, then I'll give up too. Okay? So here we are again. And that's kind of, I think, to your point, if they wanted to kind of keep with that, they could have done a similar thing where, you know, if the daughter's not willing to stand up for herself, then he's not, you know, if the daughter is willing to stand up for herself, then so will he. But they didn't, and we keep trying to rewrite this movie instead of just reviewing it. So
yeah,
staying on point. It lacks emotional depth. I feel like a lot of things are kind of shallow and lip servicey and not, and really don't have like a deeper meaning. The pacing, your criticism of the pacing is dead on. They rushed through all the stuff with Jonathan Majors. And I've always talked about that Kevin Smith thing of we just want to get the kids to the mall so we can start the movie. And it was almost like they just wanted to, they knew what people were coming for. They want to see Jonathan Majors in the ring with Michael B. Jordan. And it was like, okay, but that's your third act. You can't rush to the third act. And they were like, but fuck, we can't. And that's kind of how it feels. Like they're expecting you as the audience to be okay with the little bit they show you of their relationship. And that little bit of that relationship is supposed to hold the entire movie up. And it kind of doesn't.
It falls quick. And the Pujami prison scene didn't help at all. But yeah, I mean, the Pujami prison, did you not notice that there was a 1980s big blue cage part of the? Tell me you
what scene are you talking about?
When they're fighting at the end, where they're fighting.
Oh, where they pull the crowd, where they like go into almost fantasy mode and they pull the crowd away and they put them in they use like the jungle gym cage. Yeah,
they got the Pujami prison there. That doesn't help.
I didn't care.
Yeah, I mean I'm just saying it got a chuckle out of me.
It was a metaphor for what was going on in the fight. I really wasn't stuck on the kind of cage
and I don't think, and the whole fantasy realm of that that took me completely out of it.
Okay.
Because I wanted to see, you want to see something like that on a grand stage. You want to see the crowd interacting. Mm-hmm. You want to see him the crowd rally.
I mean, it didn't bother me, and I thought it was an interesting way to do it. Certainly different from every other film in this series, and there's been 9 of these. However, like I'm thinking about like Rocky IV and how hard he, for 12 rounds or 15 rounds, however long it was, he had to go against Drago, and they would do some like compositing of the images and some quick cuts here or there, but for the most part you stayed with them, and so you as an audience member go on this journey. You're not wrong, because when they go into that like fantasy realm that we're talking about, and the crowd goes away and it's an empty arena and the cage comes down, like,
and Mankind and The Rock in their background.
Yeah, it's the fucking halftime heat. I've often said again of modern film that it's made by idiots that think they're deep. And this was kind of one of those moments where it's like, oh, I bet they thought this was just artistic. And it's like, nope, this isn't really working for me, dog.
Yeah, and it kind of pulls you out. Because like I said, into your point, one of the big things that made me a fan of Rocky IV and makes me a fan of Rocky IV is that you're right there. You feel like you're a spectator of that fight.
Yeah, Rocky 1 and Rocky 2, the same thing. You are on that journey with them. Like, have you ever sat and watched Rocky 1, 2, or 4? In all 3 of those cases, you are exhausted by the end of that movie. Those fights are exhausting in a good way. Those fights are exhausting to watch.
It takes you on a ride.
Right. I didn't get that from that third fight. All right. I want a couple of good things about this movie as we start to wrap up the critical review. I said before, it looks great. Like the work with the camera, the cinematography, that all works really well. Michael B. Jordan is not a bad actor. He is completely shown up by Jonathan Majors. This whole movie, performance-wise, and Tessa Thompson's a good actress too. There's nobody in this is a bad actor. However, they all pale in comparison to Jonathan Majors. He is my new give him all the roles.
Oh yeah.
Like he was done the world's biggest disservice in Loki, and to a lesser extent as Kang in Quantumania, because he's so good in this that you look back at those two, he was like, "Oh, you poor baby." they made you look so bad,
and you're just like, I'm going to say this: I didn't know how good of an actor he was until seeing this. Yeah. I mean, when he's on screen, it's like you don't really pay attention. You gravitate toward him.
Well, there's so many actors that are very limited in their ability to perform. They can do good dialogue readings, but they don't really act with their body, or they don't, as they say, they don't have good facial expressions. Something Jim Cornette talks about in pro wrestling, where it's a whole body performance. Your eyes, your face, your body, the way you speak, everything about what you're doing goes into performance. And so, like, Jim Cornette often makes fun of Johnny Gargano, Johnny Wrestling, because Johnny Gargano looks straight face or stone face every time he goes out there. And so Jim Cornette relentlessly makes fun of him for it. And then you have someone like Jonathan Majors, who's acting with his whole body, acting with his eyes. Like, he's not just standing there in front of the camera. Like, did you notice through most of Jonathan Majors' performance, he's standing at an angle?
Yeah.
Like one of these. Like, he's kind of cocking his head forward. Like, he's doing stuff that just like oozes movie villain. Even when he's like talking to Tessa Thompson and like doing this with his hands, and he's trying to warm up and cozy up to these people and gain their trust so that he can stab them in the back, he still feels oily. He, he's the villain because you're not dumb and you went to go see this movie and you saw the trailers, but like, the movie wants you to go with it and just accept him as he's good until he turns. But I'm telling you, he walked into that house with fucking Michael B. Jordan, and I never for once bought that he was a good guy. And so, but I think that's great about Jonathan Majors' performance. And then when they have their confrontation on the beach and Jonathan Majors is like goading him and taunting him and everything, he's so good. Not since I watched The Wire have I been so enraptured by dialogue given by two African-American actors. It is phenomenal.
And he's got a presence to him.
Yeah. He has got fucking Hulk Hogan like charisma for days.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that people say they have it. He has it on screen.
Yeah,
he just has that physical. Yeah, he just has that. He's that big physical presence, because I mean, he's built like a fucking tank. I mean, just his body, just his physique is like, he just looks like this fucking tank coming at you. And and like I said, I mean, if they would have modeled him more like the early Tyson, that would have been the perfect character to make him.
Pat and I talked about this with the history of boxing. The thing that made Tyson was that he was shorter than the average heavyweight, and he had good swivel hip. So that infamous uppercut that he does that made him famous, it doesn't really work unless you have that like height differential and you teach someone to do that swivel hip, hip swivel,
and to throw your hips behind it and get the maximum impact,
right,
and velocity on that punch.
But I don't know if anyone working on this movie knows that about Tyson. Like, Pat and I studied stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not the big boxing guy. I'm surely not on the level of Pat or you, or even Winfrey at that matter, because Winfrey's a good contact sports guy. But I know what works and what I grew up on. I grew up on Tyson.
Tyson. Look, I don't have many heroes, but Tyson was one of them. Hey, let me jump in here real quick, because we have our friend here from Twitch has been sending in comments, and I don't want him to feel neglected. So he says, do you wish there was a subplot at the end introducing Clubber Lang's son, or would that be too cheesy? To answer that first question, that was kind of what Jonathan Majors was supposed to be, but they've already done, like I said before, they've already done Drago's son. You can't everyone's fucking son. No, This was fine the way they did it, and we need to not be no more old Rocky villains. We're done with this. Like, I actually don't want to see another Creed movie. I feel like we've reached the end of this road. If they insist on doing more of these, invent something new. Hang on, he's got a second question here. Although I can see the franchise moving forward toward the Creed daughter spinoff in 7 to 8 years. You know what I would like less? Not. You know what I like less than women's boxing? Fucking women's boxing in the movies. No, thank you. And I say that as an ardent support. Well, hang on. I say as an ardent supporter of women's MMA. I've seen some women's MMA. I was a fan through the entire, all the way back to Strikeforce Challengers. I was a fan of Ronda Rousey. I'm not a huge fan. This is not a sexist thing. I'm just not a huge fan of women's boxing. Women's boxing and women MMA, in my opinion, are like miles apart.
Well,
that's the last thing I need to see.
I mean, and plus with them having her as a deaf kid, that would pretty much hamper the realm of her taking it, because she would never hear a bell, so she would always be hitting after the bell. Well, no, I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, I'm being serious. You wouldn't have that because you have those audio cues.
I think you're not wrong, but I think a better argument is this whole series is about someone's kid. No more kids.
Yeah.
Like, stop already.
Baby's kids. They don't die.
They don't die. They multiply. Yeah, give it up. Give it to me. Yes. All right.
Gotcha.
So
but
he's got another. Go ahead,
I would have liked this real quick. I would have liked this if instead of once he wins the belt off the Chosen One, have him go to Clubber Lane's gym and just have Mr. T as like his trainer, not his kid. Like, just have him like the Clubber Lane.
Yeah,
gym.
I think if you wanted to do an association with Clubber Lang or something, you just kind of put him in the movie.
Like have his gym or something. Just kind of kind of weaken a nod to the audience. Not like necessarily have Mr. T in it. Just
what are you doing here, Mr. T? A very brief cameo, fool.
Yeah, just like have, or just like the name of the gym. He goes and trains under the
a nod
is
sufficient. Yeah. So his other thing is, did you review Jonathan Majors' other movie, Devotion? Does he emote the same? I'm interested in seeing that now to Creed. I would like to see it too. I have not, but we have not.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah. The only other thing I've seen Jonathan Majors in, actually, give your final thoughts while I look up his IMDb.
No, I mean, I did hate this movie. I put this better than 1 on par with 2. There were some aspects of 2 I really loved. Some aspects of 2 I really hate. I think if you could take the good out of 2 and the good out of this, you would get a good composite movie. But the bad is bad.
Yeah. I'm gonna get into Jonathan Majors in just a second, but just real quick, I liked the movie. I had a good time with it. I think my comment in our group chat was, I enjoyed it. It's got flaws, but overall, it was. I think due to its length, this is a little less than 2 hours, if I remember correctly. It moves pretty at a pace. And like the fights are fun to watch. The fights are fun to watch. This is yet another example of a movie where when I'm watching it, it's fine. It moves so fast and there's good enough stuff in it, like Jonathan Majors, that I'm not thinking necessarily about the bad, because the bad is not overtly bad. The problem is we have to start talking about it. It doesn't stand up under scrutiny. So it's one of those things where, like, I guarantee if I had taken any one of my friends or whatever to go see Creed 3, their reaction to it would have been, I liked it. It was good. I enjoyed it. I had a good time at the movies. The minute you start talking about it, though, the whole thing unravels.
Yeah, when you do what we do, when you break the movie down, especially like I said, with somebody like you and Pat, giving your insight to the boxing world that you guys have, this movie falls apart quickly. Like I said, I got very minimal knowledge of boxing, but I could critique it for some of the things. But for the average Joe, the average person that just wants to see a movie just to relax, this isn't a bad movie to see. This is it hits all the notes. It hits, but if you watch it with a critical eye, you're going to pick this movie apart.
So he's been in Lovecraft Country. Apparently, he's a starring role in that. Robert and Alexis reviewed it a few years back, and I've heard Lovecraft Country is phenomenal. Yeah,
it's pretty solid.
I've heard he's really good in that. We talked about Loki already. A couple of other things he's been in, Defy Bloods, which I haven't watched yet, but I've heard he's pretty good in that. None of anything else that he's been is anything I've ever seen before, so I really can't speak to it. All right, so that is our review. Before we move on to the next segment. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll have a whole other segment to do yet. Yeah. Some friends here on YouTube. We have Decon versus the Dark, who says, "What's up, guys?" Well, hello, Decon.
Hey, what's up, Decon? How you doing? Glad you could join us today.
Okay, and so this is exactly what we've been talking about. His comment here is, "Those Creed movies are very unrealistic to a person that boxes, bro." That's like almost any boxing movie in Hollywood. They are not meant to. In almost all cases, it is Hollywood boxing, and Hollywood boxing is meant to entertain. I mean, like even like the Rocky style of boxing. It's something I taught my son when I was showing him sort of the finer points of it a couple of years back. The art of boxing is to punch without being hit. And in the movies, if you're not hitting the guy, the audience isn't having a good time. Yeah, the audience isn't having fun. Let's put it this way. The best example I can give of like Hollywood boxing versus real boxing is that if you shot a boxing movie like Pacquiao versus Mayweather, the audience would get up and leave in an uproar. Because while Pacquiao Mayweather to boxing fans was a clinic, to the average person, and I watched with both, I watched with a party full of people, and there were boxing fans who were like, I understand what's happening. It's not particularly interesting, but I understand. I know what's going on here.
Boxing is a chess game.
Yeah, I see what Mayweather is doing versus what Pacquiao is doing, and they're having having a professional boxing match at the highest level. The people who are not boxing fans who came for the party and the blood were like, fuck this boxing match. Like, this is terrible.
It's like hockey. It's like hockey. Watching hockey is boring. You go to or even NASCAR. You go for the carnage. You go for the wrecks, the fights and everything. To watch a quote unquote scientific boxing fight, the average person is going to be bored out of their mind because they're not going to comprehend what's going on. They're not going to understand. You got to position. You got to work for the angles. You got to dance with them to find the opening to get your shots in. Hollywood boxing, there's very little defense and a lot of punching.
Hey, real quick, I don't think we've had this many people commenting on Any Damn You Hollywood. This is fun. I feel like I'm doing a radio show.
Yeah.
So our friend from Twitch says, any idea what age they were supposed to be when the liquor store incident took place? I mean, he was given 18 years in prison for putting a gun and not firing it. I mean, Dame looked like between 16 to 18.
Well,
Adonis looked like he was 10.
He was driving.
Yeah, I was going to say, Adonis looked like he was like 10 in that scene. He didn't look very old at all.
Well, and he was wasn't he living with,
at that point, he was living with Phylicia Rashad, so he's older than he is in Creed for the first Creed, where they see him in juvenile hall. Decon says Dolph Lundgren had excellent form. Did you know Dolph Lundgren, who's not a dentist, by the way, he's not a dentist. He was, however, like a chemistry major.
Yeah, he's got like a PhD.
Yeah,
like he's
Dolph
highly
Lundgren is the
intelligent.
fucking man. It's a shame his Punisher movie worked out the way that it did. Thank you, Decon. He says, love the show. You guys know your stuff. Well, we appreciate you, sir.
Thank you.
Very kind of you to say.
Thank you, Decon.
It's very nice to get a compliment while doing this, as opposed to
I'm just going to say
our normal feedback.
The show that we don't have Robert on is our most commented.
Don't leave him. Don't you bully my friend.
People are complimenting. I'm just glad that we're getting appreciated.
Everyone dip your hand in Crisco and give Jason a dainty hand job. He couldn't just take the compliment. He has to rub it in fucking Robert's face.
I'm just saying that, because Robert would be
Decon.
negative. Later, Decon. Robert would be tearing this movie apart. Robert would have an aneurysm by now.
Okay.
So Robert would have nothing positive about this movie. I
love the desk over.
I love Winfrey, but he is very critical. I think I've only seen him like 5 movies and that I've known him.
All right. Yeah, Dolph Lundgren was in fact a scientist. All right, guys.
Yes.
Let us move on to the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
I'm gonna tell him what you said.
Tell him what I.
Bull-
Well, no,
bully
I'm
my-
just saying.
Bully my friend.
It wasn't bullying him. I love Robert, but
Mm.
I'm sure that it would have took us 30 minutes to get through the plot synopsis because you would have interrupted him.
I'm not the one that interrupts him. That would be Alexis. All right. I'm not.
Okay.
You know what? I'm not getting into a sissy slap fight with you.
But
some
we
comments
love
here.
Robert.
Hey, he wants to know if you're going to scrutinize Fast X as hard as you did Creed 3. Oh, Robert will be on that show. It'll be so much
yeah.
worse.
Yeah, Robert. The fact that some of the stuff that I've seen in Fast 10, Robert may have an aneurysm.
I don't know how they're going to beat Tarzan, Swing, and Space. I really don't.
Yeah.
I'm dying to find out.
Oh,
Okay, if we know what your show, if we know what your show is, we're happy to check it out.
Yeah,
Deacon.
drop us what your show is. I'm always up to
All right.
look at new shows and stuff while I do nothing.
On a budget of $75 million, this thing is already a hit. And as I said, had it been last week instead of this week, it would have beaten Ant-Man in its second week, considering how far that dropped. It has made a grand total of $105.8 million worldwide and was, in fact, the #1 movie of the weekend. So Ant-Man beaten in its third week by Creed 3. Ant-Man fell from #1 to #2. Cocaine Bear
Hanging in there at 3. We love Cocaine
Pour a
Bear.
little out for Cocaine Bear, baby. Poor Cocaine Bear. By the way, the one thing about the lasting cultural effect of Cocaine Bear is the never-ending torrent of animal on drug movies that we're about to get.
And me and Mark are here for it.
Where, yeah, I may have to dedicate an entirely new podcast to just animals on drug movies. So, and I know you're here for it, Jason.
I'm always here for animals on drugs.
Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba to the Swordsmith Village. Debuted
Take a drink for the working man.
Nobody in this house cares about me. No one brought me a drink. Despite the fact that
I don't want you choking on air because there's nothing I can do.
I don't have Robert here to like speak for 20 minutes while I run and go get myself a drink.
Yeah, because I can't carry a show.
Shut up, Jason. You passive aggressive thing, you. Jesus Revolution, brought to you by Lionsgate, formerly a studio, fell from 3 to 5. Avatar, The Way of the Waiter, fell from 4 to 6. That got its announcement today for a digital release, PVOD, on March 28th, but is not going immediately to Disney Plus. See, James Cameron got that juice. You know who's got the juice, Jason?
James Cameron's got that
James
juice.
Cameron's got the juice now. It's true. Okay, so Decon says Decon versus the Dark on YouTube and Spotify. I'm just going to leave that up there. Everyone go check out. Decon was very nice to us. Everyone go check out his show when you're done here.
Yeah, go check out Decon.
Operation Fortune Ruse de Guerre, which Ronnie and I are going to review along with The Covenant and and Snatch later this year. Debuted at #7. That is the new Guy Ritchie joint that has been delayed 106 times because the Ukraine. Puss in Boots, contender for an Oscar nomination for Best Animated Film. 11 weeks in theaters, dropped from 5 to 8, and if all told, one of the best animated movies of last year. Magic Mike's Last Dance fell from 6 to 9. 80 for Brady, 70 to 10. And rounding out the top 20, we've got A Man Called Otto, Knock at the Cabin, Missing, the Oscar-nominated short films, Megan, Emily, and Titanic, 25th anniversary, and Everything Everywhere All at Once, back in theaters again. Debuting also this weekend were Children of the Corn and the Triple R Fan Celebration and Give Me Pity or Give Me Death. No, just Give Me Pity. The Forger, La Civil, and that is it for debuts this weekend. All right, worldwide, here's where we currently stand. Ant-Man and the Wasp at a paltry for Marvel, $421 million. According to the Midnight Dead people, we are entering flops territory with Ant-Man. Not a good start in the year of our Lord 2023 for Marvel. Pathan has $126 million. Creed debuting as the number 3 movie of the year so far at $105 million. This is a wild success for MGM, currently a studio under Amazon and the Creed series. So well done. Titanic, currently the number 4. Titanic from 25 years ago. Currently the number 4 movie in the world, ladies and gentlemen. And now, here are the movies currently doing worse than a movie that's 25 years old. Cocaine Bear, Knock at the Cabin, Magic Mike's Last Dance, Plane Missing, and Asterix and Obelix, The Middle Kingdom. All right, I'm not going to read any further than that. Going forward.
Just real quick, on Deacon's podcast.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing here. I'm seeing a couple of podcasts about some. He tackles a lot of the big name serial killers like Bundy, Son of Sam, Dahmer, and Night Stalker. So definitely going to give those a listen. So
he's definitely got I'm sure he's got a popular podcast for white women. Then.
Listen, yeah.
So here's the question, and I know when Robert and I talk about the money, we get into the nitty gritty. But I'm going to give you an opportunity to move from the back of the class, you sweat hog, to the front of the class here when we're talking movie money. So this weekend is Scream 6, and then the weekend after Scream 6 is Shazam.
Brutal. This is a brutal stretch.
Yeah, it's a brutal stretch from now until fucking September. So yeah, it's Scream 6. Then Shazam, then John Wick, then WrestleMania, by the way, but also I think it's Big George Foreman is after that. No,
which I seen the trailer. And
sorry, Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is after that. Then Super Mario, then Renfield, then Evil Dead Rise, then Big George Foreman. Then Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. So and now we're on a
breakneck speed.
So my question to you is, Creed maintain or does it get beat by Scream 6?
Oh, it gets slaughtered by Scream 6. I think Scream 6.
You think Scream 6 does better than $105 million in its opening weekend?
Oh yeah. Oh, most definitely. I'll probably me and my daughter will probably see it twice.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I was looking on tickets earlier just here, Huntington. The 5:30 show for Thursday's almost sold out. So that's pretty impressive.
Okay, so Creed's got. So we're gonna see a lot of movies that are just 1 week in the theaters. Our friend on Twitch brought up 65, which is the new Adam Driver science fiction movie. That's March 10th, which is
I don't know how I feel, which is coming,
but it's competing with Scream. So
yeah,
that's not gonna be the number 1 movie of the weekend, but it'll take a good chunk I
think Creed 3 falls
out of Creed.
Yeah, I think Creed 3 falls. I think Scream 6 wins this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're on a breakneck course of just seeing 1 weekend winners. Because I don't think anything's going to maintain.
I think the only movie that's got a halfway decent shot of making 2 week. No, actually, I take that back. Because Dungeons and Dragons comes out the 31st, and then Mario comes out the 7th. And Mario is going to be the first $1 billion movie of this year. Mario is going to be the one that repeats because here's the thing: its competition the following week is Renfield and then Evil Dead Rise. So, it's got a halfway decent shot of going 2 to 3 weeks of being the number 1 movie of the weekend.
I think people's underestimating Dungeons and Dragons. I think it's going to have some legs to it.
I do too. I don't think it makes $1 billion, but I think Dungeons and Dragons. Robert's gone on record as saying he, because of the Wizards of the Coast thing, that Dungeons and Dragons doesn't do quite as well. I think between the tone, the respect being paid to D&D, and Chris Pine, I think the movie does well, and I think it caps between. I'm going to go ahead and say it's a $700 million movie. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to go with. 700. I think they brought up a good point. It's a PG-13 with a wider audience versus the R-rated Scream.
You're talking about 65.
Yeah, we're talking about 65. I think that has a good premise to it, but it's Scream. Scream is a horror staple.
So I was talking to a friend who I hadn't actually talked to for a year now, and she reached back out to Melissa and I, and she didn't even know that there was a new Scream coming out. And I said, but we were talking about the franchise, and it's like, the first two are really strong. 3 is hot garbage. It's the worst of the entire series. And the best part about 4 is and the best part about 4 is the cold open. But even 4 is still better than 3. And then 5 was
wife hear that.
5 was a return to. I don't care. 5 was a return to form. And so this one looks pretty fucking brutal, though.
They said that this is the Scream movie. I can't. What's the name of it? It's good. They got a weird name. That's doing it. They said that this is the Scream movie they wanted to do with 5, but they wanted to do the fan service.
Yeah.
Before they went darker, they said that this is one of. Be prepared for this is one of the most dark, brutal Scream movies ever.
So I'm not going to be on the review. That's going to be Alexis in my chair, her friend Dorian Price, who is a horror movie director, and Robert.
Yeah, it's going to be me, Dorian, my wife Amber, and
she's on too.
No, Alexis. We did the.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the
Scream Roundtable the last time.
Yeah. Because Ronnie pulled a diva move.
Yeah,
it's just like only me. I'm like, okay, Ronnie. So I pushed you all into the pool, and you guys did your own thing.
He big timed all of us.
He certainly did, Ollie. So anyway, I won't be on that review, but I will say this: like the thing that makes Scream, and we'll move on after this. The thing that makes Scream is the meta commentary on the horror genre. If this doesn't do that, and it's just a straight up gory, gritty slasher, I'm not going to feel good about this movie. Like, it might be independently good, but I don't know how I'm going to feel about it as a fan of the franchise. Would you like to give an opinion on the matter?
I got sidetracked. I think it's going to be.
Pay attention to this show, please.
Well, I'm trying to win money.
No,
but I think Scream is one of the staples. The meta commentary is there, which you're kind of running out of ideas for the meta commentary because a lot.
You don't think there's room to comment on the horror genre as it stands?
Well, I'm saying, a lot of the horror has evolved. It's went from the slasher to more of the psychological horror.
Okay.
Like the Babadook.
Well, I was gonna say, if you go back to the show I did with the movies that don't suck guys, and we did our top 10s, and like half of mine were horror movies. Me, the guy that you all fucking pick on, and I'm like rattling off like Smile, X, Pearl, The Menu, and it's like, almost all horror movies.
Yeah, but it's a different kind of horror than what we're used to. It's transitioned.
I'm gonna need you to react to this. Scream 6 lost me when in the trailer Ghostface is shown carrying his shotgun to do his killing. That's like giving Jason or Michael Myers an AR-15. Sir, I'm here for that.
He's not carrying a shotgun. He takes the shotgun.
Could you just fucking imagine Michael Myers just rolling up, in a Cadillac and a fucking Uzi?
I will remind me to send you a video. It's Michael Myers of Decan. It is the greatest thing ever. It's this guy who year round has a full-fledged Michael Myers costume, and he goes out and just does random shit there's a video of him, a guy dressed up as Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger, and they all go shopping at Walmart, and they're like looking at guns, and it's hilarious. But the Scream 6 thing with the shotgun is it's more of the he takes the gun from the bodega owner.
Yeah, it's not
and
like
just-
he's not
yeah,
roaming
it's not
the
like
streets with it. Like
it's not like
it's fucking Walking
he's rolling.
Tall starring Ghostface.
Yeah, it's like Hobo. It's like Ghostface with a shotgun.
Hobo with a shotgun. I just
Yeah.
cut that TikTok today. All right, to wrap
Yeah.
this up, kind of move. The whole reason for those of you who've never watched the show before, that we get into these discussions when we talk about the money is trying to figure out how much a movie is going to make. So, to outline really what it is what we're talking about, because we sometimes forget that we know what we're talking about, but sometimes our audience doesn't really follow what we're trying to say. With the amount of competition Creed has over the next 4 to 6 weeks, and it's steep, that's going to determine how much money it makes overall, because as we've been documenting for months now, if not a few years, there's a decline in overall attendance at the theater, and I'm not going to get into all that again. Listen to every single one of my shows for the past year.
Yeah.
However,
That's beating a dead horse.
However, so with theater attendance on the decline and people being very choosy about what they will go see in a theater, there's going to be, for the most part, when people go to the movies, they're going to see whatever the new thing is. It leaves less people to go see what was in there last week. The word's out on Creed, and we'll talk about that in a moment. It's good. It might still continue to attract an audience because people now, unlike Ant-Man, people heard it's good, and it might not be good enough to be worth seeing in theaters. People might wait for it to be on Amazon.
I think that's
One never
what
knows.
you're going to see. That's what I think you're going to see.
Mhm.
See a lot. You're going to see a drop off because it's good, but is it
Rush to the theater, have to see it on. Yeah. Is this a movie? Is the buzz around this movie? You should see it on the big screen. Not really.
I mean, some aspects, like the first two fights, yes.
Yeah, but I mean, like
Outside
if
of that-
you've got a
Outside
halfway
of that,
decent,
it doesn't.
I
It
was like, if
doesn't
you got a
care.
halfway decent big screen TV, you get
Yeah.
that same effect. Like that, and that's the whole thing. That's one of the things that plays into people not wanting to go to the theaters now, is they can have the theater experience at home for significantly cheaper.
You don't
and
have
so
to sneak candy in.
yeah, so I don't. So I think Creed about a 50% drop off. It gets beat by Scream. What I'm asking you, Jason Teasley of the Screaming Boy podcast, is where do you think it tops out at? I think all told, it gets to about 500 million and then dies, and that is me being bullish on this. I'm almost not entirely sure I believe myself.
I was going to say 475.
Yeah, I think 500 million at the absolute top.
Yeah, I want to say I'm going to say 475 with great expectations of being around 525.
Oh gosh, I don't even think it goes that high. I think if it gets
No,
to 5,
I'm saying-
it's like just
I'm saying-
over 5.
Yeah, I'm saying that I'm shooting like if something magical happens, like, you know, people going to the theater, and this is what I feel it may happen, and why I think this is, you're going to have a lot of people that's going to go for an experience to see Scream. You're going to see a lot of crowded theaters, and people are going to be like, well, I want to wait. You know, I want to wait for the crowds to die off. A lot of people could be antisocial, such as myself, and go see Creed instead, to let the Scream crowds die down a little bit before they go out and try to enjoy it. Because a lot of things that, you know, everything in the past 3 years has taught us is the fact human interaction is not great. You want to, and this goes back to our love for Winfrey, is going to an empty theater to watch a movie is one of the best feelings ever. Because you don't have to worry about, you know, people talking around you. You can actually enjoy it. You can spread out a little bit. You don't have to worry about like somebody sharing your armrest. You can actually just immerse yourself in it and not have a crowd around you. Take yourself out. Now, granted, there are movies that you want the crowd around you for certain scenes. No Way Home, when Toby and Andrew Garfield show up.
So our friend here says teenagers are going to buy a ticket for Creed 3 would sneak into Scream 6 since they aren't accompanied by a parent. Yeah, maybe. I don't even know if anyone's paying that close attention anymore. All right, hey, so closing out the money here, it's not going to be the number one movie this weekend. That'll be Scream, but I do think that it's going to have enough holdover, as Jason's intimating, that people will still go see it, but not enough to get it much past 400 million. Low 500, and that even to me seems high. So yeah, I think it dies in the 400 millions. Still like wild success. I mean, like I said, the budget on this thing was only 75 million. I mean, they made it for, they made it for like pennies on the dollar, but like compared to
on today's standards,
compared to like fucking stupid Marvel movies where everything's $200 million, they don't ever make any money. All right, so let us go ahead and move on to our final segment, the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
So the fun thing about doing this show is, like I said, we tend to beat up on the movies a lot. We really scrutinize them. But at least for me, Robert, I kind of have to drag to this way of thinking. But for me, I do have a tacit recognition that people are going to enjoy a movie and not think about it too hard. And that 96% for the audience score really bears that out. Like I had a good time with this. Stop picking on the movie I like. The critics even liked it, but I don't know how many of them were like, I can't give this movie like all black cast. No, thank you.
Where's the white women at?
Yeah, I'm not fucking getting myself banned off Twitter by giving this a bad review. So this has got an 87% tomato reading. Stepping out from Rocky Balboa's iconic shadow at last, the Creed franchise reasserts its champion status thanks to star Michael B. Jordan's punchy direction and a nuanced heel turn by Jonathan Majors. Jesus Christ, whoever wrote that on Rotten Tomatoes, are you getting a check from MGM and Amazon?
They must have. They must be on the payroll.
Yeah, that was a little too sweet. All right.
Let's just find negative reviews. And let's see if we agree. There we go.
Robert Grimm of Reno News and Review. I'm sort of stunned by how much I didn't like this movie.
That's critical review, folks.
Thank you for your blog entry.
That is. Let's put that on the DVD case.
TK Burton of Pajiba. Whatever the reasons were, it took something great and made it into something mediocre. An unfortunate end to this powerful trilogy.
I could see that. I think that kind of hits a little bit on the side that you've discussed.
Yeah. Dennis Schwartz of Dennis Schwartz Movie Reviews. My problem was that I never bought into this obvious fantasy boxing character film that tells us with a straight face it's better to be rich with no worries than poor with a lot of worries. I'm not sure he got the point of these movies, quite honestly.
I don't think he did. And of course, if we find that Jeff Harris has reviewed this, we definitely want to give Jeff Harris a little bit of a rub.
Oh no, our friend Kevin Carr of
I see the
That
name.
Guy at the Movies. Was this too much movie for poor Kevin Carr? We'll find out. It has the crowd pleasing moments, sure, but the unlikability of the main character and the obvious absence of Rocky makes this a bit of a chore. Shit, I can't even disagree with him.
I can't disagree. I was kind of ready to.
Yeah, I was ready to pounce on him.
Then it's like, well, he's got a point.
Yeah, all right. Kevin Carr. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. All right, Black Robert Winfrey, Armand White of National Review. I think I did that. I called him that once, and he was like, "Who?" Like, yeah, trust me. When you read enough of Armand White stuff, you realize it's Black Robert Winfrey. Imprisoned by industry formula, Jordan cannot rise above its patronizing cliches. Okay.
Yeah, that's a review.
That is a review.
I don't think he really got the point of what he wanted to say, but
Well, it's only an excerpt, but still.
yeah.
Jonathan W. Hickman of the Noonan Times Herald. Creed 3 is the kind of pulpy entertainment associated with lesser installments in the prolific boxing movie franchise.
Yeah, I can kind of agree with that.
Wordy way of saying this was like Rocky 5.
Matthew.
One more here, and then we'll call it a night. Matthew Lacona of San Diego Reader, top critic. The two final fight combatants are fearsome and beautiful to behold, and Jordan does his best to get visually creative, but there's more drama in the training montage, possibly because it's the only place where his character feels invincible.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll do this one last one. Tom Santilli of Movie Show Plus. Creed 3 seems to want to throw out what worked before and go it alone. That's what the worst strategy a boxer can have. Okay, I'm sure that's really going to be helpful to like non-boxing fans who just want to see the fucking movie. All right, folks, that is our entire review. I accomplished my goal. We were done in less than 90 minutes of Creed 3. Next week, or speaking of boxing, I got one more live show this week before I'm gone for a week. I'll be on a cruise. It's the History of Boxing podcast. We are looking at Aaron Pryor versus Alexis Arguello. Also this week, we had on the W2M network, we dropped Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do for Sharper and Ant-Man Quantumania. We had a page for Archie versus Predator on our blog. On Thursday, we will have a re-airing of our UFC 242 alternative commentary, and then the aforementioned boxing show. This weekend, it's Everyone Loves a Bad Guy Saturdays with they're going to be talking Evil Educators. That's a re-air from the Blog Talk Radio days. And then Metal Hammer of Doom Sundays, we'll be looking at Throwdown Intolerance from the Blog Talk Radio days. I am gone, as I said, all of next week. Jesse's going to drop a Shazam comic review for us. We'll have a Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do for Cocaine Bear, and We Have a Goose. Our live shows are going to be Damn You Hollywood for Scream 6, and then a TV party for The Last of Us. But we've got some canned ham from the Blog Talk Radio days for you. A Long Road to Ruin for the Alien quadrilogy, a Long Road to Ruin for the Alien versus Predator movies, and then finally, this one I wasn't there for. Poor Robert Winfrey. I had him and Sean Comer review Assassin's Creed, and Sean came on the show to talk about the game, but did not see the movie. This is a painful review to listen to, but go back.
I don't want to listen to that. I could probably hear Robert's the soul
agony.
Leaving Robert's
Yeah,
the soul leaving Robert's body as he spoke.
So yes, get St. Patrick's Day, get drunk, and listen to Robert try to hold up a review.
Well, last St. Patrick's
for the Assassin's Creed movie,
or go back and listen to our
review of the Leprechaun.
Day. Yeah, our St. Patty's Day review of Leprechaun from last year.
Okay, before we go, our friend here has one last comment. It says Jason has a Tyreek Hill jersey behind him. Does he buy into the Rich Eisen rumor that Tom Brady will come out of retirement and join the Dolphins? Okay, you cannot do 20 minutes on this. You have 2 minutes. Go.
No, Brady is done. Brady's retired. There's no reason for Brady to come back. He's not going to Miami. There, I said it. And if you want even more insights, check out me and Tyler over on Mosaic Media MC on all your podcasting platforms, TikTok and Instagram.
Well done, Jason. You're a good boy. All right, folks. This has been Damn You Hollywood with guest co-host with the most, Jason Teasley. I'm Mark Radulich. Be well.
Hold on.
What?
I didn't get to do my plugs.
You just did.
I did not. I'll be here for the Scream review as
oh
well
my
as The
God.
Last of Us next week. And yes, you can find me over on Mosaic Media. There you go, Mark. You gotta
Be well. Shut the fuck up.
Eat my ass, Peter.
Save it. I told you.
Do you want me to say it?
I told you 1,000 times.
Do you want me to say the words?
Save it for the OnlyFans. Save it for the OnlyFans.
I want to say the words, Peter Pansexual.
Be well. Don't be Jason and behave.